I love this question. What would I have plans for the trilogy? So off the top of my head, I've been thinking about this a little bit, but off the top of my head, I'm going to get an interesting little, not a Sinister Six going, but I want this little, like, let's move away from cosmic. Let's move away from, like, those crazy villains, right? And let's just go to the bare basics in Spider-Man 4. Let's bring in Kingpin, like Nolan is saying, okay? Let's bring him into the equation. I want this to be a Daredevil crossover, okay? So it has some Daredevil in there, Jessica Jones, but not too much, just a little bit, touch on it a little bit. I want them to tease Venom throughout the entire movie. Just show little pieces of that symbiote slowly traveling. But never, I don't want to see a Venom in Spider-Man 4. That seems way too obvious, and I don't want to see it. So, let's take a break from the aliens a little bit. Let's take a break from the crazy villains. Let's go back to the basics. Bare bones. We're going with Kingpin. Kingpin is going to take over the new building that was originally the Stark Tower. He bought the Avengers Stark Tower, whatever. So now it is his building. He now is running this huge operation. We could say drugs or whatever, but he's running this huge operation and he's laundering all these weapons, which actually ends up tying into the Falcon Winter Soldier thing that's going on, because he and hear me out when I say this, you got to follow me here. He and Sharon Carter, Kingpin buys that, and then Sharon Carter at the end of Falcon Winter Soldier's like got the weapons, like she's got the trust in the government. So her and Kingpin are teaming up. It also ties into Hawkeye. So we've already tied into 2 Disney Plus shows. Still keeping it MCU, but not making it massive. And keep in mind, no one knows who Spider-Man is, right? No one knows Peter Parker's Spider-Man at this point because of the events of the Third. So you have Kingpin doing that, and then Kingpin is going to have Hammerhead. And I think Hammerhead, you could make a horror movie Spider-Man out of Hammerhead. And I think we're going to bring in one more character, a little alliance here, villain. We're going to go back a little bit. So we're going to have Tombstone, Hammerhead, and Kingpin. So essentially what this does is it gives you layers. It gives you added depth to the story. It shows you that Spider-Man now can still deal with... Because the biggest issue is when you go up against all of this, cosmic crap, right? When you're Spider-Man and you've already been a part of the Infinity War and Endgame, and you fought like Electro and Doc Ock and Green Goblin, at some point you're like, all right, like you gotta make it a little bit smaller and find a way to still make it somewhat watchable. So I think that if they took it, went bare bones, stripped it down to Kingpin, keeping that connection to Sharon Carter, and then you have Daredevil, showing up as part of that connection to Kingpin, and then you have Tombstone in there with Kingpin, and on top of that, Hammerhead. I think that could be done well. Then you have this huge fight. Yeah, the bridge fight with Mysterio was great. Then you have this huge battle at the end, where, Kingpin has Hammerhead and his henchmen and all of his henchmen, and then they introduce Tombstone. And I understand Tombstone isn't considered a top-notch character, and he's just really just a hitman, but they can make Tombstone, like, badass in the movie. And, I really think if you had those 3 guys, this would be, like, the moment where, all of a sudden you put, like, MJ in danger at the end, start to get them closer together a little bit, and then I think that would be the movie. Like, you focus on those 3 bad guys, you take down them, show Spider-Man can handle it on his own with a little bit of help from Daredevil, maybe even throw some Frank Castle in there, played by John Bernthal, but not too much, obviously, because you don't want that to be the only thing. So I think you throw some characters in there, like a Jessica Jones, a Daredevil, but not too much where it takes away from the accomplishments of Spider-Man, because this is his first movie being out on his own. Like, he's not with Tony Stark tech anymore. He's not, linked to the Avengers. They don't know so, like, that's kind of the deal there. And then the 5th movie, I think, is when you start to see that Venom unfold. And Venom is taken over by Flash Thompson, who's recast as somebody who obviously looks more like Venom. So you have that. So it's a big Venom versus Spider-Man, that whole arc. I think they go with the same type of thing in Spider-Man 5 where, Peter Parker gets the symbiote and Tom Holland, you do kind of this weird thing where Tom Holland is starting to get his Spider-Man's getting closer to MJ to the point where they actually start dating again. And then that kind of rips them apart, like, because his attitude, obviously changes with the symbiote. And so MJ and him like break up or whatever. And then he goes with Ned or she goes with Ned. So then Ned and MJ end up becoming a thing. Ned is looking like more more grown up, so to speak, because at this point we're in the fifth movie. So then MJ and Ned are a thing, and Peter takes it out on Ned one day because like the symbiote gets to him, so he like beats the crap out of Ned. So he has to deal with this now that the fourth one was like you pass the test, like you can work on this on your own, but then you find this roadblock, which is this symbiote. And then all of a sudden now you're fighting Ned, and obviously you have all the stuff in mind, but you never got closer to Ned. Ned starts finding out that you were his best friend. And he then kind of lashes back out. So it's kind of it's a switch, right? It's more of like a bait and switch here where you have Flash Thompson, who was going to be like Agent Venom, and Flash Thompson, it's just a bait and switch because then, Peter Parker gets the symbiote and Flash Thompson's nothing. And then all of a sudden, Peter Parker gets rid of the symbiote and then it goes to Ned. And now Ned has the symbiote. He's got MJ and he knows that Peter did all of that stuff. They were best friends and he decided not to rekindle their friendship, but he went against his word and actually went after MJ. So that's the thing. So then I think with that, you have the added hatred with Ned from that perspective. He becomes Venom, and then you have them square off. That's the movie. I think they could get that done. Post-credit scene, I think you start to see something like, the Avengers. I think, maybe, Loki or somebody comes into it, and, Spider-Man 6 is kind of the fallout from the big next, Avengers movie. So then Spider-Man 6, now that Peter has gone through everything in the first three movies, he's gone from the idea of having to lose everybody, like not knowing who he is. He's gone from having to lose his best friend and basically take down his best friend. And, he's had to take down an entire mafia gang, with Kingpin and Hammerhead and, Tombstone. And now in the sixth one, this is when the Spider-Verse really takes hold. This is the last one. This is where it's going to make people upset, but this is where I would kill off Tom Holland's Spider-Man because I don't think he'd be back for another one. You had the big Avengers, movie, Avengers 5 before this. This is his sending off, but I wouldn't let the fans know that. So then all of a sudden, in this sixth Spider-Man movie, you have Spider-Man who's really showing he's done all this stuff. And now, finally, after people have been begging for it, we finally get Miles Morales. And this is the big movie where it's the Spider-Verse. You get Miles Morales, you get 2099, you get Moon Knight, you get all sorts of guys coming into this one. But I think that there is a huge battle at the end between, the Tom Holland Spider-Man, we know and love. And I'm going to say it right now. I think it's going to, have the Beyonder. I think we're looking at that type of deal where we're looking at from the animated series, we're looking at the Secret Wars. And whether that's the next, Avengers movie or not. Actually, let's just say that's the next Avengers movie. So it's very Secret Wars-esque. So I keep seeing the comments and make me laugh. So the Tom Holland Spider-Man dies in the sixth one. Him and MJ end up rekindling and they end up getting married, and he dies at the end, saving Miles Morales. And he saves Miles Morales from an alternate universe version of himself, which is actually the alternate universe of himself if he ended up never using his powers for good, if he wasn't a good kid, like if he basically the anti version of himself in the future. Very similar to the 90s animated series. But instead it's Miles Morales. So, he is about to kill Miles Morales, his old, like the alter ego version. And so then Peter gives himself up, saves Miles Morales. Morales ends up beating the alternate version, and Miles Morales then becomes the face of the franchise for however long they want to take it. I think this is one where you will see with the video game, like the upcoming video game, Marvel Spider-Man 2, I think it's going to be very Miles Morales, like grooming driven. I wouldn't introduce you could introduce him in the fourth or fifth one, but I wouldn't make it apparent that he is going to be the next guy and like really build him up as such until the sixth. And then I would pass the torch on. I would have Najee Jeter playing Miles Morales, who was Miles Morales in the video game. And I understand people would want, I forget, Brown, I think is his last name, Miles Brown, if I'm not mistaken, the one that voiced him in the animated. But I just think, like, if they did that, I'd be all for that. So to answer your question long, to summarize it, the fourth one, I'm going to have Tombstone, I'm going to have Kingpin, and I'm going to have Hammerhead. And Spider-Man's going to take down this big mafia with the help of Jessica Jones, Daredevil, Punisher. Not too much help, but a little bit of help. The fifth one, I'm going to have him really battling the symbiote. There's going to be a bait and switch from the Agent Venom, Flash Thompson Venom, towards Ned. Ned's going to find out after, Peter and MJ break up that, he actually chose MJ. He chose to go back and get to know MJ and didn't actually try to have a relationship with Ned. So he's going to beat the crap out of Ned. And, with the symbiote, once Ned becomes like MJ's love interest, and then Ned's going to get the symbiote and go beat the crap out of him. So there's going to be that like turmoil. And then the sixth one is going to be following Avengers 5, which is probably going to be like Secret Wars. And it's going to be the end of Tom Holland's Spider-Man, where it's all about really grooming Miles Morales, his final send-off, saving Miles Morales, and keeping him going into the end. That is how I would do the next trilogy. I don't know how they will do it. They'll probably incorporate Fantastic Four. They'll probably incorporate a lot of those. I would... That's probably what I would put, to be honest with you. But I mean, I could go on and on and on. It's just off the top of my head, on the spot, I think that's probably the best I could give you.